So today's topic is conflict and negotiation in the workplace. So I'm just going to explain the what conflict is. So conflict is the process in which one party perceives that its interest and viewpoint are being opposed or evenly neglected or negatively affected by the other party. And negotiation is also that we will discuss today. So learning objective of this topic that will be define conflict and debate its positive and negative consequences in the workplace. Distinguish task from the relationship conflict and describe three strategies to minimize the relationship conflict during task conflict episodes. Diagram the conflict process model and describe six structural sources of conflict in organizations. Outline the five conflict handling style and discuss the circumstances in which each would be most appropriate. Apply the six structural approaches to conflict management and describe the three type of third party dispute resolution. Discuss activities in the negotiation preparation process and setting that improve negotiation effectiveness. Dysfunctional conflict in the air. Now, air means like if we're talking about the flight system, like so. Now we have a number of examples. Overt conflict is rare among the commercial airline cruise members, but when these clashes do occur, the consequences can be costly for the airline as well as for inconvenient for passengers. Take an example of EasyJet, Delta Airlines, and Jetways. So, if you take an example of EasyJet, right? So, disagreement between two cabin crew about how to properly unpack and store the water bottles. Minor issue, but there is a conflict. Delta Airlines. This is the second example, which shows that two flight attendants physically fought each other over work issues. And the third example is Jet Airways. The captain and the co-pilot had a disagreement over personal matters. So they were in a relationship. Now, if we say, is conflict good or bad? Right? So what conflict is? The conflict defines the process in which one party perceives that its interests are being opposed or negatively affected by another party. So negative consequences as well as the positive consequences of conflict I'm just going to discuss. For the negative consequences, the first one is the lower performance, then higher stress and dissatisfaction, and higher and the turnover will also go down. Right? It is going to affect the turnover because there is a conflict. The people are conflicting, they are fighting. Right? This is a disagreement between the employees in the teams. So due to that, the productivity of the company will go down because of the conflict arises in the organization. Most of the organizations, they shut down and they lock their businesses because of the productivity definitely drastically have bad consequences. Increased organizational politics and wasted resources. If like some there is the resolution team is arranged to resolve the issue, it means the time they have wasted, the total time will be wasting, and the time is also which is very important and scared resources. So weakened team cohesion, I mean conflict among the team members. On the other side, if we talk about the positive consequences of conflict, so better decision making. Test logics of arguments. There may be some arguments, maybe the positive or negative. Look at the argument and just evaluate whether these arguments are just static, these arguments are logical, right? Have some facts and figures, and why there is the argument. What's the reason behind it? On the basis of that, the organization have some positive consequences of conflict by resolving and implementing the new policies. Generate creative thinking, right? And more responsive to the changing environment. stronger team, like cohesion, you can say. The conflict between the team and the outside opponents. Now, if we talk about emerging view, the task versus the relationship conflict, two kind of conflict are there. So task conflict. So if we talk about the task conflict, this is emerging view of a conflict today, and two uh, dominant types of conflicts. So task conflict and relationship conflict. So under the task conflict, this is a constructive type of conflict. So these kind of conflict occur and arises when the parties focus on the issue, means on the task, while showing respect for people with other point of view, right? And there will be some debate. So in debate, quality of the ideas, if you talk about the ideas, the quality of ideas presented, that we need to check it, means some logical or accurate facts and reasonable assumptions. Avoid attention to the competence or the power of participants. If I'm just going to avoid those things, like some people are so good and have the capability, if we are going to ignore relating to the task, there will be task conflicts. Some people say, I'm good in this, I can complete this task quickly, why you have assigned this task to someone else? There may be some issues related to this. Then likely, if we talk about the upper limit of the intensity of any disagreement, but task conflict has beneficial outcomes, and all conflict can adopt a task conflict focuses. Even the personality clashes have task oriented underpinnings. If we talk about the relationship conflict, it's a focus on the opponent's experience and intelligence and credibility, right? And opponent's idea or actions are invalidated. So invalidate the ideas, right? Indirectly through their alleged incompetence, not directly to the debate about the ideas, logics, and factual foundation. A relationship conflict occur by asserting superior status over the opponent, having more experience, higher credentials they have than the opponent. So there will be some relationship conflict. So relationship conflict, there may be some consequences of that. So dysfunctional consequences triggers defense mechanism because it threatens a self-concept, means self-esteem, self-verification, self-enhancement. Second, we have reduced trust, which emphasize the interpersonal differences, means undermines any common bonds. Next, we have reduced motivation to communicate, escalate the conflict. So conflict escalate more easily because party reduces communications. So there is a lack of communication, there is the reduction in the communication. Due to that, the conflict arises and increase. So result in distorted perceptions and increased reliance on stereotypes to reinforce the threat perceptions. So next, we have minimizing a relationship conflict during a task conflict. So there are two conflict: task conflict and a relationship conflict. So now, first the focus should be to reduce the relationship conflict more as compared to the task conflict. So this is the goal. The goal which encourage a task conflict and minimize the relationship conflict. If you're going to encourage if there is a task and conflict, there is no any problem, no any big issue. But if there is a relationship conflict, there can be a problem. So the focus should be on the minimizing the relationship conflict. So relationship conflict often develops when engaging in a task conflict. There is a task conflict, and due to that, the relationship conflict arises. So task conflict debate potentially threatens self-concept and triggers to drive to defend. So there are three conditions that minimize relationship conflict during a task conflict episode. The first one is emotional intelligence, EI. So when employees with the higher EI, emotional intelligence, right, and which is associated with the emotional stability personality, so are better at regulating their emotions during debate and less risk of escalation by suppressing the feeling of hostility. Next, able to reframe workers' emotions reaction as valuable information about the person's need and expectations. So next, a type of conflict that we have, team development. So how we can resolve it, how we can minimize that. So the team development, better mutual understanding. So it means the team members better at understanding and anticipating other team members to have a good understanding. In this way, that reduces the risk that the co-workers' words or action will be misinterpreted. Next, we have psychological safety. So psychological, the team norms support psychological safety, perceived safety to constructively disagree. So shared belief that uh, it is safe to engage in interpersonal risk taking. So believe that the presenting unusual ideas, constructively disagreeing with the majority, experimenting with new work behavior won't result in co-worker posting a threat to oneself, status and career. Norms encourage respect. Now, norms, if the rule and regulations are created that encourage respect, show interest, and open minded as well. And the teamwork and the workers, they tolerate, they have tolerant power with the co worker opinions and show positive intention towards one another. Now, there is some conflict process, right? To resolve the conflict, there may be some procedure. So conflict process is there is some source of conflict from where the conflict arises, right? Then the conflict escalation, right? So there may be some conflict escalation due to some perceptions and due to some emotions. So manifest conflict, right? Then conflict outcomes. So on the left hand side, the sources of conflict, which leads to one or both party to perceive that conflict exists. People think that there is a conflict and conflict is there in the organization that exists. They have some perception because, and that after then all members and employees in the organization become aware that other party statements and action are incompatible with their own goal. Our goal is different and other goal is different. So incompatible goals, differentiation, interdependence, and scarce resources, limited resources that we have, ambiguous rule. The rules are totally different and not easily understandable all the employees, and there is a lack of communication, sometimes a poor communication. That are the normal causes of the conflict, the normal source of conflict. So now, if we talk about the conflict perception and emotions, what is that? So perception usually interact with emotions and experiences. Manifesting, right? So manifesting come into existence. Conflict episode, like decisions and behavior of one party towards the other. Decision taken by one party and the consequences that may be beared by the other party, then that conflict will be shown and will be displayed in the organization. Maybe it ranges from the subtle non-verbal behavior to aggression and also conflict resolution style. If you say about the outcomes, conflict outcome can be positive or negative. If we talk about the positive, then we can say better decision, responsive organization, team cohesion, and negative may be low morale, stress due to conflict, less turnover in the company, less productivity, and there may be some more politics, right? Groupism, lower the performance, and information. The other party is just going to hold and suppress some important information, material information. It means distorted information. Information is not available to the other persons. These may be the outcome. Now, sources of conflict in the open offices. Open office and non-territorial workspace have been fueling the workspace conflict, most of which occur as a subtle irritation and a resentment among the co-worker. Resentment means not being agreed on one issue. So increase disturbance, more and more disturbance will be there, right? Which definitely they will try to reduce the work concentrations, so and performance, and which increase employee stress again, and then conflict with those perceived to be causing the distractions. The person who is the responsible for uh, producing the disturbance and the distractions, again there will be more conflict. So, and also there will be increase in interdependence. The one person is depending upon the other, maybe because of some reasons. Maybe the share, there is a common share than the space that all employees they have to use and utilize the same resources, maybe same desk in which they are working, or maybe just similar kind of other resources they have. And on the other side, it may be because of the resources are very less, scared of resources, lack of some resources. Maybe the competition of the desk or some area that offer more privacy, better Wi-Fi facility, or near, maybe I just, some people say I want to sit besides the window, right, near to the window, right? There may be a conflict, just like we have some conflict maybe in the flight. Some people say that we want to have a window seat, right? Just like here in the organization, it also happens. There are different resources of the conflict. Maybe the structure source of conflict. Uh, Open plan and non-territorial workspace have been fueling the workplace conflict, most of which occur as subtle irritation and resentment among coworkers. This is a structured resources. This may be because of the incompatible goals. So one party's goals seems to interfere with other party's goals. It means the goals of the one person or maybe for one department seems to interfere with the goal of other person or other department. For example, efficiency versus customer services. And second type of structure source of conflict is differentiation. So different trainings, different values, different beliefs, different experiences may be the cause of structural source of conflict. This conflict is not because of their own feelings. This conflict is because of the structure in the organization. So differences among people and work units regarding their training, values, beliefs, and experience, and parties may agree on common goal but have different beliefs about how to achieve that goal. So differentiation in the merging company, for example, two companies are there, there may be merger of this, and again there may be some differentiation, and can result in the course in the source of conflict. Organizational and national culture clashes over the right way to do things based upon the unique experience and history of each department or each organization or each company. Next, we have a structural source of conflict is interdependence. All conflict requires interdependence, and the risk of conflict increased with the level of interdependence. It means all conflict is partly caused by interdependence, the extent to which the employees must share their information. This is their rule. Must share the materials, must share their experience, right, to perform their jobs. Risk to conflict, definitely it will escalate it or increase with the level of interdependence. If there is a pooled interdependence, mean lowest level, the work unit totally depend upon the common resources or common authority, means take an example of a shared administrative support. One administration is there, and they will be providing a different helps to resolve some issues, right? That is administrative support to all type of department. Then there may be some sequential interdependence, sequence wise. Maybe one person's output is next person's input, means take an example, this may be happening in the assembly line. When there is output of one thing in the manufacturing unit, take an example, uh, the batteries, if the batteries are produced, only then the packaging department will start packaging. So for them the input will be the battery. So it means there is a sequential interdependence. Reciprocal interdependence is also there, mean output that will be exchanged, so that employees are highly dependent on each other, highly dependent. uh, Take an example in the hospital, in the medical teams. So medical teams are depending upon each other. The one doctor is depending upon the another one, another doctor is depending upon the on the first one. So this is also we can say the structural conflict that can arise. In the structure conflict, the next one is scarce resources. Some resources are very less. Create competition for the resources. I want to use this one. I want to use the same resources. The only part, one machine is there, right? So one machine can be used by the different department, different managers, right? So it means the lack of resources cause conflict. This is not because of their own feelings, this is because of the structure, this is because of the resources in the organization. So limited resources, more conflict, and definitely it's going to be have bad and mm, wrong interferences with the other party's goal. Now sometimes the rules are so ambiguous, means not too much clear, uncertainty, and there is some politics as well. So some rules which is not clear, that create uncertainty, increase risk that other will threatens own goals. And if we talk about politics, that encourages organization politics. When rules are not clear, ambiguous, other use influence to gain for their benefits. So next kind of structured source conflict is a communication problem. Poorly stated messages escalate conflict, and conflict cause emotive messages, and less communication amplifies conflict. So, starting with the conflict, which is generated and amplified by the lack of skills, lack of motivation to communicate. Some people don't want to communicate. That can be a problem. Some people are just diplomatic, or diplomatically they handle the situation, and uh, non confrontational, right? And conflict generates emotions. Like if you talk about the emotions, increased emotional laden language, and aggressive non-verbal behavior, which convey conflict to the other party and result in the escalation and less communication. Like so, lack of communication amplifies conflict, means lack of communication due to lack of opportunities. Lack of communication may be because of the conflict reduces motivation to communicate, and lack of communication reduces information accuracy because of the communication, low communication, lack of communication. Distorted images means like distorted informations, and increased stereotype, maybe including differentiation to fill the missing information. Now, if we talk about interpersonal conflict handling style, so you can see there are 4 points, right? So, the problem solving, then forcing, avoiding, and yielding. Now, the problem solving and compromising that we have at the center. Assertiveness on the left hand side and cooperativeness on the x-axis. So cooperativeness means motivation to satisfy other parties' interest. They want they want cooperation. Sometimes the cooperation may be low, may be high. Assertiveness means want to take initiative, confidence, and motivation to satisfy one's own interest. Assertiveness may be sometimes low and high. So this conflict handling style, which says the problem solving, there should be a win-win orientation for the problem solving. So that happens when both the cooperativeness is totally high at the peak and assertiveness is also high. Means both things want to motivate self's own interest as well as want to cooperate with other people. So when both are high means the problem solving, there will be a win-win situation, and try to find a mutually beneficial solution, and both collaborate to identify the common ground, common goal, solution, and satisfy all. If we talk about the forcing, the forcing is the different. The forcing means when there is the lack of a cooperativeness, right? Low cooperativeness, but on the other side, more of the motivation to satisfy one's own interest. This will be win-lose orientation. So try to win the conflict at the other's expense. So rely on the hard influence tactics, and also include the moderate assertiveness, such as showing the support and conviction for an idea. Now we have avoiding. Sometimes people want to just avoid some situation. So when this situation arises, it's a smooth over or evade conflict situation. Although this is depicted as low concern for the self and also low concern for other. So it can also be necessary the short-term conflict handling tactics, and even when the issue is important to you. So compromising reach a middle ground between the interest of the parties. It's a middle ground, other way around, right? Matching the other party's concession. Now conflict handling style contingencies. It means that people have one or more preferred conflict handling style. Right? For one problem, for one conflict, there are a number of styles, but need to know how and when to apply each of that style, each of them. Right? So best best conflict handling style is totally depend upon the situation. Sometimes there is a situation, and then we need to adapt those kind of handling styles. All the handling styles, like four styles, like five styles that we discussed. Now when to use that style, and what will be the positive and negative outcome of that, what will be the problem. Now if we talk about the first one, the problem solving style. So it is required and a preferred style when the interests are not properly opposing and parties have trust, openness, and time to share information. When issues are so complex, so then what will be the problem in this style of solving the conflict? Sharing information that the other party might use to take their advantages. That may be the problem. The second one is the forcing. It's clear from the name itself. It's a preferred style when the quick resolution required is that can be forcefully. Your position objectively has a much stronger logical and moral foundation, and other party would take advantage of cooperation. The problem there may be higher the risk of relationship conflict that may damage the long-term relationship or relations and reduce future problems solving. If there is a future problem solving possibility, people will not agree on it because the resolution they made forcefully, which no one like. Other kind of technique and style is avoid this one, right? This is the preferred style of resolving and the conflict when the conflict has become emotionally changed or relationship conflict. Parties want to maintain harmony, right? Both party want to make to have some harmony. They want to maintain the harmony. They want to have a good relationship. So cost of resolving conflict outweighs its benefits. The problem in this style that maybe it doesn't usually resolve the conflict but may produce uncertainty and frustration because that because of you want to have a good relationship, you are just going to avoid something, you are just going to compromise something, but compromising is also one of the problem, right? Which may cause some frustration. Next, that we have yielding. This is the preferred style when issue is much less important to you than the other organization, other people are more important than the problem. It means that you want to yield, just like the yield sign we saw on the road, yield to the pedestrian. Here the yield is exactly the same thing. You are going to give the preferences to other person. Okay, go ahead, I'm ready to accept your proposal. Issue is much less important because your relationship is important, and this style is best and preferred when value or logic of your position is imperfect and parties want to maintain harmony, other party have much more power, or sometimes other people's skills, other people knowledge expertise is more, and even then also that you say go ahead, you are a good person to go, even that you want or not, but you want to maintain a good relationship. But in this case the problem arises in the future, expectation increases. Oh, this is the guy can solve a number of problems in the software or programs, Every time, every person will be hiring and taking that advantages. Instead of doing their own efforts, they will say, oh, that guy is really good, let them do. So increase other expectations. That can also increase some problem. But one of the style that we need to follow. Next we have compromising. Compromise word. It's clear from the name. It's a preferred style when the single issue conflict with opposing interest, and parties lack time or trust for the problem solving. They don't have time. What are the okay? Do it. We can compromise. I don't want to waste my time. Right? Particularly, and parties want to maintain the harmony as well, just like it was in the previous case. And parties have equal power. When they have equal power, then they will instead of yielding, they will just compromise something. And this is sub optimal solution where mutual gains are possible. Now, if we talk about the differences, culture and gender differences in the conflict handling style. The problem is there, they want to solve the problem. But if we talk about the men and women, how they perceive this one, this is that I'm just going to explain. So, preferred conflict handling style may vary across even cultures and need to adapt style to the local culture norms and practices. Local culture means maybe country, maybe state, or maybe one local organizations. For example, like high collectivism culture prefer avoidance and problem solving style to maintain the harmonious relationship, but possibly only within the group, not with those they are outside the group. Within the group, they just want to have some harmony. Gender differences, if you talk about, is preferred conflict handling style. Men related to management and sometimes non-management use the forcing styles more than do women, right? And female managers use more avoiding style. No, so female managers use avoiding more than do male managers. Women use a slightly more problem solving, more compromising, more yielding. Reasons: motivation and expectations to protect the relationship. They just want to protect the relationship. That may be the reason for this. Now, we have some structural approaches to conflict management. Emphasize subordinate goals, means focus on the common goal, right? So, the goals that conflicting parties value and whose attainment requires the joint resources and effort to those parties. For example, emphasize the firm's strategic objective then rather than the individual or the department goals, right? So the whole the overall goal of the firm's objectives are more important as compared to the individual one. So that also reduce goal incom- incompatibilities and may reduce the differentiation. So differentiation means establish the feeling of shared social identity. Next, we have reducing differentiation. So reduce the differentiates or differences. We want to reduce the differences, then generate conflict. This is also one of the strategies. There are the differences that we want to reduce the differences. So create common experiences means generate a shared social identity. So what are the way and methods to reduce the differentiation? So the first is the meaningful interactions with people in other organizations for the temporary assignment or applied contract hypothesis. And if we talk about the rotating staff through department and regions, so differences they are just going to reduce by these means, by rotating the staff to the different departments and different research throughout their career, and which definitely increase their identification with the overall firm rather than just only one department, because they are just moving from the one department to the another department. And build the strong culture. If you talk about the building of the strong culture, and not only the building but maintaining a strong organization culture as well, and which include some shared values, shared assumptions, a stronger sense of community as well. Now, improving communication and understanding. Conflicting conflicting parties are there, are given more opportunity to communicate and understand each other. And definitely it doesn't necessarily to reduce the differentiation but may produce some clearer or clearance, awareness of their facts, their problems, and respect for one another situation as well. So there are some ways to increase the communication and mutual understanding. What are the ways? Daily interaction. So if you talk about the daily interactions, rearrange the physical or reporting arrangements so that the daily interaction between the employees should be increased in the organization. This is also one way to improve the communication and understanding. So next we have Johari windows. So applies the type of Johari window that I will explain in the next page. What is that? Is individual disclose information about themselves and their self perception to other, and give feedback to other about how they are perceived. Then we have intergroup mirroring. So mirroring. Intergroup mirroring says that each group in the conflict share how the group perceives itself and how it perceives the other groups, and how the group believes it is perceived by each group, right, by the other groups. So the warning is here, need to first reduce the differentiation, right? If that you want to improve communication and understanding, the first thing is you need to reduce the differentiation by using some different strategies, and use communication and understanding interventions only when differentiation is sufficiently low, and after differentiation has been reduced then we can use it. Now, what is Johari window, right? So, Johari window is the technique designed to help people better understand their relationship with themselves and other. Sometimes we can say self on the y-axis and others on the y-axis and self on the x-axis. So, self, for example, this is something information is known, and for other is unknown. It means I know something, one person knows something, but other people like they don't know anything. It means the hidden. If I know something and other people also know something, it means open. Information is open. If in case I don't know some information and other person also don't know, it means the information is unknown. If I don't know but other people know that, it means blind. This is one of the example here in the Johari window. Now if we talk about next approach, structured approach, reducing the interdependence. Structured approach means is not about the feeling, it is about the organizational structure The top level management, they will be going to adapt any of the method or all of the methods depending upon the situation. They are just going to change the structure to solve the conflict. So this point says that reduce the interdependence, create buffer means employee who coordinate. So create a buffer means decoupling the relationship, build up inventories in assembly line, maybe versus just in time inventory system. Means buffer, create buffers. Sometimes people need some stock, some raw material. If some raw material is also there in a bulk, anyone can use. Sometimes inventory may be required in just in time, quickly. Just a Walmart, they just buy some bottles of milk uh, on the very first day, a day before, right? So they got it and then sold. Again, they purchase and sold. That is the just-in-time inventory system they are using, and use integrators. So, what's the meaning of this? It means that the employees as a human buffers who coordinate the activity of the differentiated work unit towards the completion of the common task. Means coordinate effort of the several departments to launch the new product. The person is there, right, who will be like integrator means integrations, the person who is going to join all the departments. Those people are known as integrators. They will be going and serving all the departments. It means they are just like middleman and helping all the departments in achieving the organizational goal. Combine jobs into one. It means reduce the task interdependence and form a job enrichment. Means each person assembles a entire product. If there is an interdependence, it means the one task is completed, only then the second task will start. But the better way is reducing the interdependence by combining the one job into one, right? So one job should be started and completed by one person. It means there will be no or less interdependence, which will cause less conflicts or no confliction. This is also one of the management style to manage the conflict. Next, we have some resources. Increase the amount of resources available, right? And clarify rules and procedures. Sometimes what happen, rules and procedures are there, but no one is there to clarify that, to create a schedule, right? And clarifying the role and responsibilities as well in the organization, which will definitely help in the conflict management. Now, if you talk about the type of third party intervention, now if there is a conflict, then third party intervention is required to resolve it. Any attempt by the relatively neutral person, right? Not in the from one department or the other department person you are taking. No, that is a neutral person from outsiders to help the conflicting party to resolve their differences. So this is the one approach. So third party intervention means that can be classified by their level of control over the process and control over the decision. So this is the process, level of process control and level of decision control. Now the first we start with the arbitration. So arbitration, what is the meaning? High control, right, which determine to resolve the conflict, means high decision control. And so in this case, so what happened, manager follow the previously agreed upon rules and due procedure. Sometimes there was some conflict and this was the resolution. So manager will follow whatever the solutions that was provided before. Exactly the same kind of resolution will be implemented here. Arbitrations. So arbitration, that is the final stage of grievances by unionized employees in many countries, and also increased used in the non-union conflict as well. So it has a high control over the final decision. Arbitration means just like a bylaw rule. If the decision is there, that will be binding upon all the parties, but that will be as per the rules. Next we have uh, inquisition, right? Questions, inquiries, queries is related to this word. Means inquisitors are the person who determines the how to resolve conflict. That's it. How to resolve conflict mean high decision control, not process, and choose which information to examine the how to control it means high process control. High decision control and high process controlled when we have it here, so then we definitely in the organization will invite persons that inquisitors, mediation or mediators. So mediations, so mediator have high control over the intervention process, right? High control over the intervention process. This is interventions and high control, but little to no control over the conflict resolution decision. No control, little or no control. Then mediation is required. Okay, what is the best way? Choosing the best third party intervention strategy. Manager prefer inquisitional strategies. The problem will be the least effective and poor procedural justice. Why? So no doubt if in the company the manager is going to prefer inquisitional strategies to resolve the problems, right? And that is the third party intervention strategies, which is consistent and decision oriented nature of the managerial job, and usually the least effective third party conflict resolution method and conflict with the procedural justice principles. It's, it is taking like they will be just getting more and more information, but it's not a right or perfect way. Sometimes it can be used. And next approach is mediation. So mediations potentially offer higher satisfaction with process and outcome. Mediators otherwise gives implies more responsibility for resolving their disputes. Arbitrator or arbitrations, when mediation fails, then arbitration will be used. So use the arbitration when mediation fails has a procedural justice mean bounding and due to the predetermined rules and processes. Now this was about the conflict and conflict resolution.